Today we are interviewing Dato Mikaail Kavanagh, who is the former Chief Executive of WWF Malaysia and is now an environmental consultant. Dato, what do you do as an environmental consultant?
I use my skills and experience networking in ecological issues, basically mainly wildlife biology, land use, that sort of thing. I use those skills for particular projects, most of which are technical projects done for usually the ultimate client's government.
Talk about some memorable projects that you've done, especially those concerning climate change.
Well, I suppose the ones I'm involved in currently, one of which is helping to maintain the extent and connectivity of forest in Peninsular Malaysia. That's important because forest, if it's broken up into small patches, is not healthy and does not survive in its original form. It doesn't keep its full complement of species, plants and animals, and that includes trees. So that's one project. The other one would be a very big project I've been involved in a number of years in Borneo. It's called the Heart of Borneo, and the three governments, that is of Indonesia, Malaysia and Brunei, have all agreed to conserve a sustainably managed forested landscape over a truly massive area, that is an area of about 200,000 square kilometers, which straddles the border areas of the three countries, including the highlands and in some places reaching down into the lowlands and even as far as the sea. So it's one of the world's biggest conservation projects.
What inspired you to delve into the environmental field?
Reading exciting books about wildlife in the tropics when I was young. I like reading books about conservation, and well, I suppose they were adventure books, many of them in those days, and many of them were written by hunters, I should say, as well. But it made me think, well, I would like to go and see these things and work there if I could when I'm an adult, and I've been lucky enough to do that.
What are you doing to combat climate change as an environmental consultant?
Well, I'm working on those projects that I told you about, and this is important because of the amount of carbon that forests sequestrate, that is, that they contain within them, which if released into the atmosphere becomes a problem for climate change. So one particular one is where I'm working with colleagues to try to initiate, and in my role to help fund and coordinate, a project, a peat swamp action plan for Brunei, which is part of the Heart of Borneo work. And this is very important because peat swamps build up huge amounts of basically rotting wood, and this can be as much as 5, 10, 20, even 30 feet deep. And obviously there's a massive amount of wood in there. That means there's a lot of carbon. So if you allow, they say, the peat swamps to be drained, then typically they will burn off and that carbon will be released into the atmosphere. And it's a fact that because of all this build-up, the peat swamp forests, by rough rule of thumb, sequestrate probably 6 times as much carbon as the dryland rainforests. There are lots of other reasons for conserving peat swamp forests, but climate change alone is reason enough.
What steps do you think should be taken at any level to solve the problem of climate change?
I believe at the highest level compromise is necessary between the West, which has been pumping carbon basically into the atmosphere for a couple of hundred years to fund its industrial development, and the developing countries which now more or less want to do much the same thing. Clearly if they do the same thing, we all go down the tube together. But there again, they can't be told that they have to restrict their living standards and the West will maintain their higher living standards. There has to be some compromise, and this has to take place urgently.
Any ideas for future endeavors to combat climate change?
Yes, I think probably one of the most important things that can happen is for the next phase of the climate change agreement, which is basically the Kyoto Protocol, for the next phase of that, to allow carbon credits, that is payments, to be given to countries or institutions or even individuals who conserve standing forest. At the moment you can get carbon credits for growing new forests under certain strict rules. You can get carbon credits for example, alternative fuels and so on, but you can't get it for maintaining standing natural forest that's been there for hundreds of years. Well, that seems to me to be counterproductive. Think what's happened if we burn off all the tropical rainforest in the Amazon, the Congo, Southeast Asia, New Guinea and so on. It will be an absolute global catastrophe. So it has to be made, there has to be economic encouragement to stop that happening. We have to make that more efficient.
Okay, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.